G'day folks, Wren here. Today I wanted to do a bit of an introduction video to help you guys get to know me. Now, first question, pretty obvious, who am I? So, my name is Wren, and I am a agender biromantic individual. That was my gender and my sexuality. So, gender-wise, I am agender, which means I don't have a gender at all, and I use they them pronouns. Then for the sexuality side of things, I identify as bisexual and also asexual. Combine those together, you get biromantic, so I am romantically attracted to two or more genders. It's all very convoluted, but that's me in kind of a little nutshell. Other things you should know about me. I live in Australia. Born and raised, and I am currently studying a Bachelor of Archaeology. I'm in my final year, hopefully going on to a Master's straight after. So I do like all things old. My very specific interest is Roman gladiators. I also do really enjoy looking into queering the past. So trying to find all those queer stories from ancient times that sometimes get misinterpreted as like the whole, oh, they were such good friends that they professed their love for each other, but they're just friends. Like that type of history, I like to put the queer back in it. A couple other things about me. I have a dog, Chopper. You will probably hear him a lot in my videos or see him. He is, he's 9 now. He's a Staffy and just love him to bits. He's my everything. I also have quite a few chronic health issues, so I'm not going to talk about anything really specific in this video, but you'll probably hear me talk about them in some vlogs. So that's me. So the next question, what is my reading journey? So I was never a big reader. Growing up, I didn't really like reading. I do remember like being quite young and my parents reading me stories to go to sleep. I do remember at least one book series that they read me, and I'm not going to mention it here because we don't support TERFs here. But I do also remember another story that my grandmother would read me, but she wouldn't read it to me. She had a cassette tape, like an audiobook cassette tape of it, and she would just play that for me to go to sleep, and that was Black Beauty. So that was about the only reading I did as a kid. I do remember in the later part of primary school we had to read a book for like a project, and we read Hatchet. Amazing book, everyone should read it. I was obsessed with it, still am, it's great. But that was kind of the only reading I did for a while. And then in high school there was like another book I read, The Boy in the Striped Pajamas. I had to read that in like year 8. And then in about year 12, one of my friends said to me, you should read this particular book. And I read it, and it's one of my favorite books of all time. I should have picked it up before I came here, but that's Boy Meets Boy by David Levithan. It was the first queer book I read, and it just it really hit me quite hard because I didn't know that queer stories existed, and at that point I was definitely still figuring out my gender. I was ignoring that real big. I always knew I was bisexual. It was shocking to me when I realized people were, like, not everyone was bisexual. It was a time. But with the Boy Meets Boy book, that was kind of the only book I read for several years. Like, I would reread it every year, but I wasn't big into reading. Probably between the ages of like 17 to 21, I just fell down the huge rabbit hole of fanfiction, and I was just thoroughly obsessed, and I was just, every second of my day I was reading fanfiction. And like it was very intense of just constant reading. I almost like destroyed my life because I just wanted to keep reading. So like that was a situation, which, still love fanfiction, it's great, but I definitely don't read as much of it anymore. But then in 2018, my sister passed away, and she was always a huge reader. And I didn't realize it until probably last year, but it was after she passed that I started really devouring books. And, you know, it got to the point now where I can sometimes read 200 books in a year, and my bedroom is just full of books, and it's kind of become part of my personality. But I realized last year me reading so much was kind of a way to honor her. And I'm not going to get too much into detail about that because emotions. But since then, I have just loved reading so much, and I've found what I liked. I've made so many good friends through reading, and it's been like such a great time. So it really only has been the past 4 years that I've gotten into reading. The next question is, how do I track my reading? Now, I love tracking things. It's like so comforting to me. But I track my books in 2 ways. So the first way is in just like a bullet journal type situation, and I set it up, you know, each month I have a couple pages of a spread. I'll put in details about any readathons I'll be doing that month. I put in all the details for my TBR game, and then I track how many pages I read every single day, and then like what books those pages came from. And then I will also do a like concluding spread for each month, where I'll have like the best book and the worst book of the month, and then a couple like honorable mentions, because I can never just have one book that I loved or one book that I didn't like per month. Like I have to have some options. So I track my reading that way, and I really enjoy it. Then the other way that I track my books is on an Excel sheet on my computer, and it's very, very detailed. I just, all the details I get to put in there is great. So I have a bit of a yearly tracker. I also track how many books I've bought in the previous years, and then how many books I'm buying this year. With the ones I'm buying this year, I put in like the prices of everything, because just I love numbers. I also will like color code, like if I have read them, they'll go for a different color. If I unhauled them or DNF'd them, they'll go for a separate color. And then I kind of go back every time I've read a book that I own. I'll go back and like put in the details for that. I also track all of the new releases coming out. I also do Core Pile, which is the creative genius that is G from Book Roast, that she came up with. And I just kind of took that one page of Core Pile and put that into my own spreadsheet, because the way that the rest of her Core Pile spreadsheet was laid out was different to how I like to track. So I just have the one Core Pile thing. But then after that, I then have each month set up. And so with each month, I track the day I started, the day I finished. I track the rating that it has on Goodreads, and then the rating I gave it. I track what age range it's from. I track its genre. I track whatever kind of like diversity is in it. I track the number of pages. I track the author's gender and the author's race or ethnicity. I track what year it was published. I track the format that I read it in, and I track where I got the book from. So lots and lots of information on there. The next question is, how do you organize your shelves? Now you can see I've got a shelf here. I have a couple of different bookshelves, and I organize them all very differently. So I have like a main bookcase, and that it's like quite a large one. That's my like to be read bookshelf. Then I have a shelf next to it that's a bit smaller. That is my read shelf. And then I have this one right next to me that's quite tall. This is more of like my favorites shelf. And then in each shelf I will organize by genres. So for my main one, I've got classics, non-fiction, then horror, thriller, queer. I have a big I have like this one big shelf in the middle, and that's just always just queer books of any genre. Like, it's just queer books all go there. And then I have contemporary, then paranormal, then fantasy, and then I also have sci-fi. And then I have kind of like my red shelf. I haven't organized by genre, I just put books in where they fit. Sometimes they don't always fit, so I have to rearrange quite a lot. And then on my favorites shelf, I have also organized that by genre. I have contemporary, fantasy, paranormal, or just like magical realism, sci-fi, and then I have one full shelf that's just Middle Earth. Basically any Tolkien books are in there. I have a bit of a collection of The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Any new editions I find, I buy. I love Middle Earth with all my heart. And then I have my comics and graphic novels and manga section. Alright, next question is your favourite books. I do have like one book that is very much my favourite of all time, and that is Wolf Song by TJ Klune, which is the first book in the Green Creek series. But also just the entirety of the Green Creek series is my favourite of all time. These are honestly everything I could want in books. They are queer werewolves, really focusing on pack dynamics, and there's a lot of bittersweet moments, a lot of heartache, but so much love and kindness and just caring for each other, but like taking down the bad guys, and just the most epic found family. I love everything about these books. They're perfection, in all honesty. So these are definitely like pride and place favourite books of all time. I do also have a couple more favourites. So we've got Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is the first in the Brown Sisters trilogy. I also adore Act Your Age Eve Brown. I could never choose between the two. This one was just the easiest one to pick up. But this series is just about these three sisters finding love. They're all very different sisters. They're very strong, independent women, and they kind of just like find themselves while finding the love of their life. So in Chloe Brown, Chloe deals with fibromyalgia. I don't have fibromyalgia, but I do have some chronic health issues. So reading about someone else having chronic health issues and it just feeling so real, it kind of really, really hit hard for me. And then Red, who Chloe falls in love with, is just... If I was ever to want a man, Red would be the man that I would want. He is such a caring guy, and just, I love how much he loves Chloe and she loves him, and they were just such a great couple. Another romance of my favourite of all time is Boyfriend Material by Alexis Hall. This is a queer romance. This is fake dating, which fake dating is my favourite trope ever. And the way it's done in here is just, they're so full of snark that it's hilarious. And you've got like the messy gay and then the really uptight gay like together. And like that's just a really fun dynamic. There is like a lot of heart in this as well. And just like growth happening as well. And just finding out that they do like each other, and it's just beautiful. I reread this basically every year as well. It's a great time. Next we have the Heartstopper series by Alice Oseman. This is a comic and it's about two boys falling for each other. It is the softest, sweetest thing you will ever experience. I reread this every year, if not more, because it's the biggest comfort read ever. Because they're just soft, sweet boys, you know, caring for each other, and they're just such kind people. And their friends are so kind that you just want to keep reading them just to feel like you're one of their friends. It's just such a great time. The last one on this list will be Soul Eater by Atushi Okubo. I've probably pronounced that horribly. This is a manga series. This is the first in the Perfect Edition. I adore this series. So this series is about weapons and meisters. So a weapon is a human that can turn into a weapon, and a meister is the person that can wield that weapon. And it's just this bunch of kids going to school, and the school is run by Lord Death. And it's them, you know, learning how to be better meisters, trying to make their weapon as powerful as possible so that it can become Death's weapon. And it's the most Halloween vibes ever. So next is my favourite authors. So obviously I've already said TJ Klune, favourite author of all time. I've read many of his books now, so I've read all of the Green Creek series. I'm a couple books into the Tales of Verania series. I've started the Extraordinary series. I've read House in the Cerulean Sea and Under the Whispering Door. I've also read his like Blasphemy little short free book series thing. I've read a lot of his stuff and I love it all. It's all just amazing. I love the way he writes. The characters he creates always feel really real, and he's really good at like cutting out your heart but then putting it back together. And just a fantastic writer. Probably another favourite author would be Aiden Thomas. I read Cemetery Boys and Lost in the Neverwoods, and I'm really excited to read the Sunbearer Trials. Just another really great storyteller. Then there's also Rick Riordan. I've read all of the Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief series. I've read all of the Heroes of Olympus series. Just the world that Rick Riordan comes up with is such a fun time. Very connected stories. Also Akwaeke Emezi. I've only read a couple of their books, but ooh, wow, they can write so well. Just like, I'm speechless even just thinking about the books that they've written. How do they do it? It's just amazing. Everyone should go read their books. It's so great. Okay, so I also wanted to go through some of my favourite genres and to highlight a couple of my favourite books in those genres. So probably my first, like, number 1 favourite genre is paranormal. So we've got like this, and this. So we've got some romance books. They usually tend to be queer romances that I like. So we've got this. Another genre that I really like, I'm probably going to call it like light sci-fi, because they're not the real heavy sci-fi. So we've got this. And the last of my favourite genres is kind of what I call theatre queers, such as the next question is, what books or authors will I not read from? Now, these aren't, I will never ever read from these authors, or I'll never ever read these books, but ones I'm very much probably not going to read. Things like We Were Liars, A Little Life, not Daisy Jones and the Six, or really any Taylor Jenkins Reid. Probably not any Colleen Hoover, bar like one, but Colleen Hoover is not really my vibe. Again, Jane Austen, definitely not a classic author that I want to read anything from. Emily Henry, again, not my type of books. And then also probably Mindy McGuinness. Next question, some of my favourite booktubers. So Books and Lala, Becca and the Books, A Frolic Through Fiction, How to Train Your Gavin, Steph Loves, JD Ray Reads, Bookish Gems, Literary Diversions, Completely Melanie, Meg with the Books, and Katie Colson, and Booked and Busy. Those are just a bunch of some of my favourite booktubers. And the last question is, what do I think I could bring to Booktube? Queer vibes. As a queer individual and someone who reads mostly queer fiction, just my own kind of perspective on some things. Also, I have a TBR game, TBR Gate. I think it's a fun time. I love TBR games, so I've got that one coming. I'll also probably do like a bunch of just vlogs, and I don't know, my reading taste is somewhat different to at least a lot of the booktubers that I watch. So, and you know, everyone can bring their own thing to Booktube. that is it for the Get to Know Me video. Hopefully you've learned something interesting about me. If you like any of the books that I mentioned, please let me know down below. I love to talk about my favorite books. If you have any recommendations from my favorite genres list, please let me know. I am always on the lookout for more paranormal, more theatre queers, more light sci-fi, and some more like romance. I'm always on the lookout for more of those. So if you have any recommendations, let me know down below. I will put in the description box all of the booktubers that I really like and just any kind of links to anything that I've mentioned. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!